Which of these logos looks correct to you? Chances are you said the one on the right. You see that brown horn-shaped thing in the back? That's a cornucopia, a horn-shaped basket used to carry fruits and vegetables, associated most often with Thanksgiving festivities, but according to the brand Fruit of the Loom, there never was a cornucopia in any of their logos ever. We're being gaslit, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. So to set the stage, we're gonna have to go over a few things. First off, the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is a term used to identify shared false memories by a huge group of people. Its name comes from thousands of people in the 80s remembering the South African leader Nelson Mandela dying in prison, but he actually died in 2013. Another common example of this is the children's book series The Berenstain Bears. Most people remember this as Berenstein Bears, but I feel like this could be explained easily by the unusual spelling of the surname, causing a lot of typos on stuff like VHS tapes. Some goofy goofballs on the internet like to point this out as evidence as some kind of parallel timeline or alternate universe or something, saying that at some point around 2012 our timeline shifted into the Berenstain universe. Some even theorize that it has something to do with the Large Hadron Collider shifting us into a nearby identical dimension. Believe what you will, I guess. Secondly, Fruit of the Loom. Fruit of the Loom is a clothing company from Warwick, Rhode Island that was founded in 1851, mostly known for their t-shirts and underwear. The history, though, isn't important. What is important is their logo. Given that the company is nearly 200 years old, it's had a few changes in the logo department, although the idea is relatively the same. They all follow the same pattern of leaves, grapes, and an apple in the middle, but seemingly no cornucopia. So what exactly is going on? Yumi Ram, a digital marketing manager at Quora, posts,
I have a strong opinion about the Fruit of the Loom logo and whether it had a cornucopia or not. I remember seeing a cornucopia in the logo when I was a kid, and I learned what it was from my school. Cornucopia is a horn-shaped basket that is filled with fruits and vegetables, and it symbolizes abundance and prosperity. I think the cornucopia made sense for the Fruit of the Loom brand because it showed that they had a variety of quality products. However, according to the company itself, the logo never had a cornucopia. I don't buy the Mandela effect explanation. I think there's something fishy going on here. Maybe the company changed its logo at some point and tried to erase the evidence. Maybe they are lying to us for some reason. Maybe there is a conspiracy behind this. I don't know for sure, but I know what I saw and what I learned. The Fruit of the Loom logo had a cornucopia, and no one can convince me otherwise.
and I 100% agree with that post. You're gonna try and bullshit me and tell me that the Fruit of the Loom logo never had a cornucopia in it? Fuck off. In 1994, in a newspaper article, an actor that you may know as voicing Sebastian the Crab in The Little Mermaid was mentioned talking about his commercial acting career, and it stated,
For 19 years, Wright made anywhere from 120 to 140 television commercials for Fruit of the Loom underwear, and he didn't even wear Fruit of the Looms. He wore skimpy bikini briefs. My wife is European, he says, from a hotel room in Tampa. She said, cotton underwear made me look like an old man. Anyway, Fruit of the Loom's logo was initially a cornucopia swollen with an apple, green grapes, purple grapes, and their green leaves. Wright was the purple grape cluster, and he had to pretend Fruit of the Looms, I never found them comfortable, were great.
"Oh, hey, baby boy. What are you doing? You want to say hi to the camera?" On January 24th, 2022, the Lying Bastards post on Twitter,
Did it hurt when you realized our logo never had a cornucopia?
to which Kurds Prime says,
Sure.
and then posts the logo that we all remember. Okay, so basically, this leaves us with three options. 1, there is no cornucopia, and we're all just fucking idiots. 2, there is a cornucopia, and we're being lied to. 3, it did have a cornucopia, but it doesn't anymore, and they're gaslighting us to get people talking about their brand and keep their name in the news cycle or whatever. But how would it even be possible to hide so much evidence? I mean, logistically, they would have to have sold billions of shirts and underwear, and someone has to have saved at least one piece, right? Right? Every one of my friends that I asked about this said yes, they know for sure that it had one. A few of them, including myself, said that Fruit of the Loom is the only reason that they know what a cornucopia is. Go ahead, pause this video, and ask anybody if the Fruit of the Loom logo had a cornucopia. I guarantee they will say yes. In a thread on Reddit about this very topic, user Waltonix writes,
That post was doubly bizarre to me. I haven't visited the US since the 90s, and I distinctly remember t-shirts from that brand with that logo on the tag. It was a very brief exposure, and I've not thought of that brand since.
Chronic Blunts responds,
I think we underestimate how unethical business practices can get. I would put money some ad guy developed a strategy in response to the Mandela effect to modify the logo and gaslight the public because they knew people would talk about it. Also, it's one of those cases where law hasn't caught up yet, and there's nothing on the books about playing with people's perceptions of reality.
And finally, Silent Siren says,
I worked in a Kmart when I was a teen, and I had to stock men's underwear all the time. The label had a cornucopia. I looked at that damn packaging for hours on end and remember it clearly. That is why I wonder why they are so adamant that there wasn't one. It feels like there's some sort of gaslighting. I just don't know why.
On June 28th, 2023, Cora Harrington on Twitter posted,
The funniest thing about the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia conspiracy is how everyone conveniently forgets Fruit of the Loom is one of the largest underwear companies in the world and has pumped out literally billions of garments in its existence. It would be impossible to hide.
Twitch user Marie, sad college student hours, posts,
I wonder if people are mistaking the beige leaves on the 1978 to 2003 rendition of the logo as a cornucopia.
but I don't buy this. It's a similar color, but it's not what people remember. I mean, look at the artist's rendition of what people remember. That you wouldn't mistake that for the leaves. Okay, so commercials. There's got to be commercials, right? Like the recordings of their old stuff from the 80s. Let's take a look.
The Fruit of the Loom, guys. Hi, gang.
Bess, how do our briefs hold up?
Listen, I put a lot of underwear through the ringer, and Fruit of the Loom really stands up.
They have the Superman waistband.
Snaps back wash after wash.
That's high quality.
At a low price.
That's my professional opinion.
Hey, the Fruit of the Loom guys! Who else? The Fruit of the Loom guys?
Men's cotton briefs with Superman waistband, only $1.43.
Okay, so maybe not that one. Let's try another one.
Fruit of the Loom guys.
Our briefs holding up okay, Chief?
I see a lot of underwear down here, and Fruit of the Loom is the pride of my fleece.
Thanks to our Superman waistband.
Snaps back wash after wash.
That's quality.
At a low price.
Take it from a pro. Hey, you guys getting seasick?
How could you tell?
I've never seen ripe fruit turn green before.
Men's cotton briefs with Superman waistband, only $1.67 each.
All right, another one.
Fruit of the Loom knows your boys are rougher, tougher than ever. Destruction on wheels to a pair of briefs. That's why Fruit of the Loom introduces the Unbustables, our best-built boys' briefs ever.
With our heaviest pre-shrunk cotton fabric. Our strongest waistband ever. All at a great low price.
So give your tough guys our best-built boys' briefs ever. The Unbustables, new from the unbeatable Fruit of the Loom. Now, save up to $4 on future purchases of Fruit of the Loom. Details at stores.
I guess they changed it some point after 1987, right? 2 years ago, a now deleted account posted on the Mandela Effect subreddit.
Possible reason for the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I, like many of you, vividly remember what the Fruit of the Loom logo used to look like. I remember being a kid and asking my dad what the brown thing on the logo on his old undershirt was, and him telling me it was a cornucopia. This was late 90s, early 2000s. I also know that as far as records show, there never was a cornucopia, except that there is an old post on here that explains that Fruit of the Loom filed a trademark for a logo that included a description of a cornucopia. So I looked it up, and indeed, there it is. Here's the link. The trademark was filed in November of 1973 and was canceled November of 1988. So for 15 years, they had this trademark, and they were using it. So, it's feasible that they were printing shirts during this time with the logo as we remember. Now, the logo pictured on the trademark page does not have the cornucopia on it, even though the descriptor is there. Now, based on the information from the US trademark website, drawings must reflect the logo you want to use. Here's the link for that. So it could be possible that Fruit of the Loom was using a cornucopia logo for years, not realizing their trademark specimen doesn't support the cornucopia until someone at the company noticed. To avoid any issues with someone trademarking a similar enough logo and taking them to court, they quietly changed the logo and say it was never part of their logos throughout the years. And since this logo was stopped officially in 1988, if not unofficially before then, and the internet wasn't around as much then, it would be easy for them to deny it. but people remember the logo for how it was, and if your father is anything like mine, he owned those shirts for long enough for you to see them. Do I have proof? No. Do I have any real knowledge of trademark law? Also no. But this is just something that I was thinking about, and I figured I would share. TLDR, it's possible the cornucopia existed. Fruit of the Loom removed it to avoid possible trademark issues. The internet wasn't around between 1973 and 1988, so no real evidence outside of a shirt with a logo or an internal file would exist. Also, all of this is speculation, and I'm not a trademark lawyer.
Interesting. The trademark length seems to be for a type of laundry detergent, and while it does mention the cornucopia, it also mentions baskets, bowls, and other containers, so we could probably count that one out. I tried putting that image of the shirt from earlier into TinEye, and it leads us to a popular post in the r/funny subreddit with 35,000 upvotes.
I told you all that the Fruit of the Loom logo had a cornucopia. Mandela effect is false.
It reads in all caps, posted by a user known as SCP-420B. However, in a cross post of the subreddit teenagers, this exchange happens.
Okay, but like, photoshopped.
Nope, that's what the elites want you to think.
It's literally photoshopped. The logo color and the text color are different.
I know it's photoshopped. It's a meme, dude.
Do you think it's funny to spread misinformation? This reminds me of that you wouldn't download a car thing. That doesn't even fucking make sense. The whole point of that ad was anti-piracy. It's you wouldn't steal a car, like you wouldn't steal software. Like my copy of Sony Vegas that is absolutely legit. And I've seen this fucking image spread everywhere. Like, can you stop? Can you just think with your fucking brain for a second? Can you do that? Can you do that for your old pal Gooba? Can you just use your noggin? Honestly, if you spread that message, just go fuck yourself with a cactus. I don't know what else to say. Oh boy, I got off on a bit of a tangent there. Okay, back to the cornucopia. In a similar thread 3 years ago, Ginger Mao posts,
When I was little, my mother used to buy Fruit of the Loom white t-shirts for my father from Kmart. After removing the new shirt from the package, my mother would give me the white cardboard from inside the shirt and say, "Here, draw something on that," because she hated throwing useful things away. Still does. One night, after she did this, I didn't know what to draw, so I decided I would use my crayons and draw the pretty fruit basket I saw in the plastic bag that the shirt came in, which was still sitting on the table. My mother said, "Oh, you're drawing the cornucopia. It's also called the Horn of Plenty." And that's how we learned the word cornucopia. My mother even remembers this happening, and my husband remembers the cornucopia on the logo as well. Yet, both of them just brush it off when I tell them it never existed.
and later down in the thread, Fiery Tomb writes,
What fucks me up the most is the fact that with most of the Mandela effects, they can be somewhat debunked. For example, some people remember the Pillsbury Doughboy with a red tie. They could be getting it mixed up with a multitude of other characters with red bow ties. It's cool, but there's no way in hell that all these people are remembering a cornucopia with zero references from pop culture. How the fuck are all these people happening to conjure up something as random as a cornucopia? It's not like there used to be a mango within the fruits and now it's gone. Like that can easily be dismissed as our brains don't usually pay attention to tiny details. With other Mandela effects that are debunked, they say that it could be you mixing it up with something in pop culture. There is nearly nothing within pop culture that references a cornucopia. The only debunking of the Fruit of the Loom logo that I found is them saying is simply a false memory.
And with that, I decided to do my own research. So I open up TinEye and drop in the supposed fake logo. Nothing. I went to Google and searched for companies that use cornucopias in their logos. Katsuruba Bros? While this did seem like a good lead for a little bit, it seems like this company is located entirely in Boston, so unless Germa is running Fruit of the Loom, this probably isn't it. I also came upon this picture, this time on some kind of metal surface. In the linked Reddit thread, the top comment by Film Composer reads,
"What bothers me about this Mandela effect is the cornucopia is exactly what I pictured in my mind. First time I read that the Fruit of the Loom logo never used one, I thought, okay, I'm going to create a visual image in my head of all the details I can remember before looking it up. And sure enough, the supposedly false memory version, like in this picture, was 100% what I remembered it to be. The angle, color, details, etc. I'll admit, I'm totally susceptible for falling for other Mandela effects, but it's not like there's a big difference between the Berenstein and Berenstain that I could draw from. This cornucopia is absolutely what I remembered it to be, so it had to exist somewhere for it to be in my memory bank, and it's not as though I've ever driven by this building."
I also saw a lot of comments about clip art, and it led me to this website. And I know you may be thinking, alright, teachers in the 90s and early 2000s probably plastered these all over the school to be festive, and it looks so much like the Fruit of the Loom logo that our brains just meshed them together. You know, squishy child brains and all that. Normally, this is where I'd end the video and just think, okay, that's probably it. It's done. But you can probably see the runtime of the video and realize it's not that easy. It's never that easy. Frank West is a jazz musician who in 1973 came out with an album called Fruit of the Loom, which featured, you guessed it, a motherfucking cornucopia. 4 years ago on Reddit, someone going by Juggling Knives posted this to the Mandela Effect subreddit.
"I tracked down the Fruit of the Loom illustrator, and he is a Mandela Effect believer. See what he had to say." Let me start this by saying I only first learned about the Mandela Effect a few weeks ago. I've always been a skeptic at heart when it comes to conspiracies, but the Fruit of the Loom logo Mandela Effect is one that really resonated with me based on my past experiences and the overwhelming amount of pop culture and newspaper residue. In an effort to get more clarity on what's going on, I decided to do a little investigative work and contact the people behind the residue. One piece of residue you may be aware of is the Fruit of the Loom album by Frank West. I learned that the artist behind this album cover was a man named Ellis Chappell. He still has a studio website, so I decided I would fill out his website for him and see what he had to say. Here is what I sent him. "Hi, are you the person who painted the album artwork for Fruit of the Loom? Would it be alright if we asked you a couple questions about your inspiration for the design? Thank you. Name redacted." I received a reply the next day from Reed Chappell, Ellis' son. "Hi, redacted. This is Reed, Ellis' son, responding for my dad here. I remember the cornucopia specifically, as does my dad. This is the second time we've been contacted about this album cover, and Ellis and I are more than happy to answer any questions you have about it. I was a little kid when Ellis painted the Fruit of the Loom cover, and I remember specifically this album being a reference to the cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom's original logo, which is where my dad says he specifically got inspiration for the design. When I talked to him about it, he said, 'Why the hell else would I have used a cornucopia? The food coming out of the flute is soul food. Actually, a ham hock, cabbage, black-eyed peas, etc. I remember when, in my mind, Fruit of the Loom quit using the cornucopia in their logo and switched to just using the fruit by itself. It impressed me because I thought the logo looked better with the cornucopia in it. In my memories, this was roughly around 1978 when I was in 2nd grade, so anyway, feel free to ask away. Thanks a lot, Reed and Ellis Chappell." It wasn't immediately clear to me from his response that he was aware of the Mandela Effect, so I sent him the following reply, although I realized after the fact that he was aware because he changed the subject line in the reply to me to read, "Mandela Effect, response to inquiry. Hi Reed, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. In case you aren't aware, the reason people have reached out about this particular album cover is due to a phenomenon called the Mandela Effect. A very large number of people remember the Fruit of the Loom logo with the cornucopia quite vividly. It sounds like you do too. But you may be surprised to learn that the cornucopia has never existed in the history of the company. If this is the first you have heard of this, I'm sure you don't believe me. But I would encourage you to look online and review the logo history of the company. The only cornucopia you will find will be an artist's rendition of what some of us remember. Would you mind if I share the email you sent me with some people online? I think others would be very interested in it. Thanks, redacted." Unfortunately, he has not replied, and I have grown impatient in waiting for his permission to post this, so I decided to post it anyway. Make of it what you want, but I found it fascinating to hear a first-hand account from a residue creator. I also found it odd that Reed remembers the cornucopia going away in the 70s because I was born in 1991, and I remember the cornucopia on my clothing.
Later on, more contact would be made and they would post the full interview. Here it is.
Did you draw/paint this album cover from memory, or did you have a photo, print, or clothing item you used as reference? I used to have, in fact I still have a lot of them, file folders with images such as a folder for musical instruments or a folder for trucks or automobiles. But this piece was primarily made up from my imagination, other than looking at the Fruit of the Loom label. Does everyone seem to understand the artwork, meaning they are remembering the old Fruit of the Loom logo? Or has anyone been confused about it and asked you why it was called the Flute of the Loom with a cornucopia? No. Meaning, no. No one we're aware of who's seen it has ever been confused about it, prior to us being contacted in April. Did you contact Fruit of the Loom prior to coming up with the name and design? Was there ever any copyright problems or permission needed? No. When I did it back in the 70s, nobody even knew what copyright was. It was not as prevalent a concern as it is today. Do you remember when you first noticed that the cornucopia had disappeared from the Fruit of the Loom logo? Did you just think the company changed it, or did you realize something was going on? No. That was one job of more than dozens that we had dealt with on a monthly basis. It came in and went out, it was not thought of again. Read here. I noticed that the cornucopia being eliminated from the logo around 1978. When did you first learn about the Mandela effect? When did you specifically learn about the Fruit of the Loom Mandela effect? That would be you. Ellis was talking to me. Someone named Redacted contacted us through the Chapel Studios art webpage and asked us if we were aware of the controversy around this album cover and Fruit of the Loom's statement that no cornucopia ever existed. Redacted called it a bizarre memory phenomena, and this made me think of the X-Files episode where they mentioned the Mandela effect. It took me a minute to remember what they called it. I began looking on Google and found a Reddit page where people were talking about my dad's album cover, which was exceptionally strange. Incidentally, I'm writing this for my dad because I got the automated message from the website as well. And if you waited for my dad to get around to answering these emails, you would never get a response. Now that you have learned about the Mandela effect, how does the Fruit of the Loom Mandela effect make you feel? Well, it's nice to be remembered, I guess. When I did it, I had no idea it would have that kind of, I guess you could say, shelf life, that people would remember it for that long. Flattering, I guess. And also, I guess the main thing it makes me believe is that people are watching too much television and should be reading more books. This was a harder answer to get out of him. I think he's not really sure what to think about it other than he knows he shaped the flute on the album cover like a cornucopia because it was referencing the cornucopia and the Fruit of the Loom logo, which he and many other people remember. How familiar are you with the Mandela effect, and are there any others you have noticed? Not very familiar. I had to explain it to him after I'd found out about the Mandela effect claims. Do you know for certain that there was a cornucopia? There had to be. I would have no reason to paint the image that way if there had not been a cornucopia. The flute takes the place of the cornucopia, but it would not make sense at all if there had not been a cornucopia to begin with. It's a take off the label, so it has to resemble the label substantially. Otherwise, it would make no sense. Do you know for certain that this must be Mandela effect? I don't know. It could be an example of one. It has all the earmarks. Whose idea was it to parody the logo? You or the client, Frank West? The client. I further asked him about this, and he said that having soul food, ham hock, cabbage, black-eyed peas, come out of the flute instead of the fruit was actually his idea. What are your thoughts about the current company history showing the Fruit of the Loom has never used a cornucopia? I don't believe that. I think whoever came up with that answer is someone who just recently got involved in doing graphics for the company. Are there others in your family besides yourself and son that remember the cornucopia? No. This is Reed here. I mentioned all this to my mom. She and Alice are no longer married. And she didn't remember the album cover and basically thought this was nonsense. Does Ellis have any memories of trying to recreate/convey the look of the Fruit of the Loom logo? For example, trying to get the color scheme right, or trying to paint the textures in a way that resembles the Fruit of the Loom logo, or putting thought into getting the flute shape to mimic the cornucopia, maybe thinking about the direction the drawing of the flute would be turned. Would it be turned to the right or to the left, etc.? I looked at the Fruit of the Loom label I had for reference and I based the shape of the horn, flute, on the label I had. It was probably a t-shirt or something I had in my vast wardrobe of t-shirts. Do you have any theories as to why the cornucopia disappeared from the logo, and what might be causing the Mandela effect in general? They probably just wanted to simplify it because the cornucopia just added a graphic element that wasn't all that necessary. As to the Mandela effect, No, I don't think there was such a thing. This is all news. This is Reed here again. I think society takes it for granted the flow of time from event to event is always concrete and simple, that the past is something that happened which cannot change. Differing, shared timelines seem more plausible in that context of a multiverse where multiple versions of each event are occurring, have occurred, and will occur at once. Frankly, I'm confused by what's going on with this album cover, seeming to prove something which also seems to have been factually denied. I remember the Fruit of the Loom logo having a cornucopia myself. I remember first hearing the word cornucopia in 2nd grade. I remember this specifically because I was held back in kindergarten and then skipped 1st grade going directly into 2nd. I had no problem making this transition, other than that there were a few vocabulary words that I had never learned which other students knew. One of these words was cannibal. I thought they were saying cannonball, and I was embarrassed when I was corrected. The other exotic word I remember learning in 2nd grade was cornucopia. I remember thinking that it was a complicated, strange word just for a horn with food in it. And I remember my point of reference for what a cornucopia was the Fruit of the Loom logo, which they had just changed, taking out the horn. I was a little more familiar with the cornucopia because I had seen my dad's original art, which I knew at the time was a reference to the underwear/t-shirt company's logo, the only other place I'd ever seen a cornucopia. I hope this has been helpful. I will certainly be following this. I cannot see any way for all of the accounts of people who remember the original logo in conjunction with my dad's artwork all being a coincidence that could easily be explained. Thanks. Reed Chapel and Alice Chapel.
I don't understand. Pretty much everyone unanimously agrees that yes, it did have a cornucopia, but nobody can pull up a single t-shirt or pair of tidy whities or whatever that has all. Nobody can pull up a single t-shirt or pair of underwear or tidy whities or whatever that has this logo on it, and I do not know why. How could millions of people have this thought that so many people know that could swear that this cornucopia existed, but it doesn't? How the fuck is this possible? The Berenstain Bears think, yeah, that's a spelling error with a weird last name. That's fine. I get that. But this isn't normal. I am flabbergasted. I am exhausted. And I don't have an answer. But I know what I saw. I know what I saw. Millions of people saw that horn. You hear me? You hear me, Fruit of the Loom? You motherfuckers. You can't hide from me. What's next? You're gonna tell me that car mirrors never had the text, objects in mirror may be closer than they appear? Oh, you've gotta be fucking